Okay, can we start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next is BTL. We are under this now leasing, right? We were talking about leasing and we discussed about two types: leasing of public assets, LDOD we discussed, and BOLT also we discussed, right? Built on lease transfer. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So next is built transfer lease. Built transfer lease. All these are slightly confusing. The important ones we'll discuss, but all these anyway we will write. So just write, this name itself will tell you, right? Private entity establishes a project. Right there, the private entity establish a project, then transfer its ownership to the government. Okay, so private entity establish the project and then give it to government, and then it will be taken back on lease for specified term. So private entity establish a project, transfer its ownership to the government, and taken it back on lease for a specified term. It is actually similar to BOT, build, operate, transfer. Build, operate, transfer. This I will discuss next, okay? So build, transfer, lease. So first you construct, the private entity will construct, give it to government, take it again on lease. Here the private entity is taking lease, the one which they constructed upon certain terms and condition. Okay. Next one, under leasing itself, the fourth type of leasing, Affermage. Affermage. It is a special type of leasing. Please write. It's a special type of leasing contract. It's a special type of leasing contract under which a private entity share a part of revenue with the government in lieu of fixed rent. Okay, so in lieu of fixed rent, it is a special type of leasing contract under which a private entity share a part of revenue. So here there is a revenue sharing with the government. So private entity will lease it and will share the part of revenue to the government in lieu of fixed rent. Okay, so the rent will be paid, revenue will be shared. So Affermage. So that's about leasing. Okay, so leasing was the fourth type. Now fifth type is concessions and BOT, right? Fifth type, concession. So first we will write concession, concessions, BOT. There are different other types also. Concession and BOT is important, so we'll write about concession first. There is only a small difference between concession and BOT. If it is old projects, it is related to concession. If it is new projects, it is related to BOT. But we will see the technical definition. So under concession you write, under this private entity, renovates a brownfield. Brownfield means already existing project. Okay, Greenfield means new project. So brownfield project means already existing, Greenfield is the new one. So brownfield project. So under this private entity renovates a brownfield project, comma, operate it for a specified time. So renovate and then operate it for a specified time based on the contract period, and then transfer it to government. At the end of the term. So private entity renovate a brownfield project. When you say renovate, it is brownfield project only, and then operate it and then transfer it to government. Now when it comes to BOT, it is new projects only here. Okay, so you can write BOT, that is second one. Build, operate, transfer. BOT, build, operate, transfer. Like you see here also the same only. Here renovation, operation, transfer, right? So here BOT means build, then operate, then transfer. Renovation because brownfield. Build because greenfield, new project. Okay, so build, operate, transfer. It is also called, you will get this also, DBFOT. Design, build, finance, operate, transfer. Design, build, finance, operate, transfer. Design, build, finance, operate, transfer. Okay, right under that, under this, private entity establish a greenfield project, means new project. Private entity establish a new project or a greenfield project, operates it, similar to this, operates it, greenfield project, operate, and then operate it for a specified time, and finally transfer it to government. So greenfield project, operate it, then transfer it to government. So there is not much difference between actually these two. Okay. Now this is actually similar to what? BTL, build, transfer, lease. It is similar to that only. Okay. Similar to BTL only, but here in case of BTL you build and you transfer the ownership to government and then you take on lease. Here also you build, you transfer the ownership, you build, you transfer the ownership and you operate. Here also build, transfer, operate. In this case build, operate, transfer. So almost similar. Okay, now there are two types of BOTs. Two types of BOT. First one, under BOT, build, operate, transfer, you can write BOT toll. BOT toll. So that name itself will tell you what is this, right? It is actually a user fee based BOT. User fee based. So you will collect the toll. So write one line over there. Under this, project cost is recovered. Under this, project cost is recovered through user charges. Through user charges. Okay, so normal toll that you pay, that highways, etc. Second, you can write a second under this itself, BOT only, BOT annuity. BOT annuity, or you will also see this word annuity based BOT. Both are same. BOT annuity or annuity based BOT. Under this, user charges. See, actually here you collect toll. No, the difference is sometimes even if you collect toll for a specified term, you may not be able to collect actually the project cost. The project cost will be much higher, and which you may not be able to manage through the toll. So in that context, BOT annuity model means actually government will compensate here. See, yesterday I've told you that Delhi airport metro, okay, so I've told you the cases in the High Court actually because they were not able to realize the investment itself. So here when we are talking about BOT annuity, here the government will compensate. So write that under this, user charges are not sufficient to recover the project cost. So user charges are not sufficient to recover the project cost. So project cost you are not able to recover through user charge. So what you will do? The government compensates. So government compensate the private entity. Government compensate the private entity by making periodic payments. By making payments in installments. By making periodic payments. Okay, so these are two models, BOT, within BOT, BOT toll and BOT annuity. So first one we discussed under this category is concession, then we have discussed about BOT. Now C, so A was concession, B was BOT. Under BOT we discussed two. Okay, BOT toll and BOT annuity. Now C, within this third category, BOOT, BOOT. What is this? Any idea? What is this, Ashwin?
Build, own, operate, transfer.
Yeah, build, own, operate, transfer. So first you build, own, operate and transfer. Right there. Private entity establishes a project. Private entity establishes a project. Operate it, retaining its ownership. Operate it, retaining its ownership, and finally transfer it to government at the end of the term. Operate it whole, retaining its ownership. So operate by retaining ownership and then transfer to government at the end of the term. For example, this minor port, okay, etc. Minor port projects, etc. D. Boost, BOOST. What do you think of this S? Only S is different here. Otherwise, build, own, operate, transfer is there. What is this S? Same only, you need to add S here. What is that S? Before also we discussed this. So you own and operate. So whatever revenue you get, you will share it with the government. Same only. Okay. So this is a share portion. Right there, private entity establishes a project. Private entity establish a project. Operate it for a specified term. Operate it for a specified term. And shares a part of revenue with the government. And finally transfer the project to the government. So build, operate it by retaining ownership and share this to government, the revenue, and then transfer after the end of the term. That's what. The only difference is between these two is actually sharing. Okay. One more you can write under this. Build, own, operate. Build, own, operate. E. BOO. Build, own, operate. So here what is the difference? There won't be any transfer. This is also one of the way. Okay. So private entity establishes a project. Operate it, retaining its ownership. Operate it, retaining its ownership. So when we discuss about PPP models, actually now give a heading PPP models. Which one is most common among this? BOT for major project. Okay, build, BOT, build, operate, transfer. That is most common, especially in the major project when it comes to highways, airports, etc. So BOT model is actually followed. If it is minor projects, so this is for major projects. Minor project, which one is better? Minor project, EPC is actually engineering, procurement and construction. That is what actually followed. Okay. Now there is a, yeah.
Sir, in BOO there is no involvement of government.
No.
So then how it come under?
No. Like government will give land or some kind of facilities. But there won't be any transfer. They will retain the ownership. They will invest maybe for public welfare and everything, but there will not be any transfer to the government. Okay. So PPP models mainly BOT for major projects and minor projects EPC. Now see here, I've told you in case of Delhi that Reliance issue itself, sometimes the private entity will come up with loss. They may not be able to recover the project cost. Okay, so here the private company is risking. So under risk, so actually NHAI actually developed a new model, that is what hybrid annuity model. Hybrid annuity model. This was actually a prelims question. So this hybrid annuity model is actually a mix of EPC and BOT. Okay, just write BOT annuity. BOT annuity means what? We have discussed two BOT, BOT toll and BOT annuity. So BOT annuity means in case if you are not able to recover the project cost, government will compensate, right? So this is actually, this point is very important here. So hybrid annuity model, just write one line there and then I'll explain if it is required. Under this, government provide, so first actually what happened is government will provide 40% of the project cost. Okay, so project cost will be provided initially 40% in the initial 5 years itself, that means during the construction, and rest of the 60% of the payments will be provided in installments, okay, during the term of the project. So initially when the construction is going on, then itself 40% of the project will be provided. That's what hybrid annuity model. And then in terms of installment, rest of the 60%, and there the performance of the project etc. will be taken into consideration. So write this. Under this, government provide 40% of the project cost. Government provide 40% of the project cost to the private entity. To the private entity in the initial 5 years. In the initial 5 years. In bracket you can write during construction. Initial 5 years during construction. And rest 60% of the payment is provided. And rest 60% of the payment is provided in installments. In installments during the term of the project. During the term of the project. Based on performance of the project. Based on performance of the project. Okay, so it is a combination of EPC and BOT. So the government, in case of EPC, you can see 100% is actually given immediately, directly. So here 40% will be given in the beginning, and then rest of the 60% will be compensated. Okay, so here that who will be collecting the toll charges here? It is NHAI. Okay. See, there was a proposal of developing or setting up 400 railway stations. Okay, 400 railway stations to be renovated on the basis of Swiss challenge model. You might have heard this. What is Swiss challenge model? Any idea? Can anyone explain this? Swiss challenge model? What is this model? Swiss challenge model?
So it is based on bidding process.
Yeah, bidding process. In fact, almost all these PPP models are based on bidding only. But what is special in this?
Says in somebody puts up the bid and then government opens it up for counter bidding.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Here what happens is a private entity, let's say A. This private entity will submit a proposal about a project which is in demand, okay, so which is actually demanded by the government. So there will be a proposal by this private firm. Now this proposal will be put in the public domain. So government will put this in public domain and will ask for better improvement within this. Okay, so the government will actually invite better or improved proposal over this. So you will get improved proposal from, let's say, different people, and the better among that the government will pick. Okay, so the best among that will be picked by the government. The best bid or the proposal will be selected. Let's say that is given by D, okay, or E. Now what will happen is, see, this person actually gave the proposal first. So government will actually offer this proposal to A. Government will ask, can you give this proposal, or can you take this proposal in this rate? If A say yes, then A will go with the proposal. If A say no, then D will get the proposal. So why this is asked? Because this person came up with the proposal first. So that opportunity has to be given. So government will ask the modified proposal or the improved proposal, can you implement at the said particular terms and condition and rate? If they say yes, A will get that. Otherwise, D will get the project. Okay, so this is what Swiss challenge model. So you can write in when you're writing essay, etc. The Swiss these words you need to incorporate. In case if you're getting a mains question, one mains question is for sure from PPP. No doubt in that. One question is for sure mains. If you're lucky, you will get essay, and we have a lot of content in this chapter. If you get an essay from PPP, okay. Now we will see the problems or challenges in PPPs. Problems. 2013 direct essay was from PPP. Okay, problems or challenges in PPPs. So first one you can write, no independent regulator. No independent regulator. Okay, so when there is no independent regulator, what will actually happen? It reduces the quality of services. So you can write one line there, it reduces quality of services. It also lead to increase in tariff, right? Because no independent regulator, so it lead to increase in tariff. That means exploitation of consumer. That is a problem. The excessive toll which is charged by the private entities. So it lead to increase in tariff. That leads to exploitation of consumer. Next point, you can write second point, lack of information. Lack of information. Under that you can write, the PPP program lacks comprehensive database regarding project reports and government policy towards PPP. Project reports and government policy towards PPP. Comma, it restricts participation of private entities in such projects. It restricts participation of private entities in such projects. Okay, so lack of information is a problem. Now see, whatever is coming to your mind also you can incorporate here, whatever you feel as the main problems. One more you can write, lack of project development. Lack of project development. Lack of project development means under that you can write inadequate availability of viability studies, right? Inadequate availability of viability studies. For example, I've told you that Delhi airport metro, that was in laws, right? So viability study, how to conduct viability study, that is actually a big challenge. And many cases, the highway projects, etc., mostly in laws. So viability study is not properly conducted, and that is one of the reason why this is actually not successful. So a proper viability study should be conducted. Okay, so inadequate availability of viability studies. Okay, then you can also write project reports are not available, technical feasibility studies. So all these are problems, but in general, lack of project development. Under that you can write lack of viability studies, technical feasibility studies, project reports, etc. Next you can write under that itself, lack of project development itself. Under that you can write, there are problem in acquisition of land and seeking clearances. This is one of the most important problem. There are problems in acquisition of land and seeking clearances. Okay. Next one, lack of institutional capacity. Lack of institutional capacity. So when we talk about lack of institutional capacity here, I'm talking about government officials. They don't have the skills to study viability, right? It is very obvious. So you can write there, the government officials lack skill to study viability, comma technical feasibility, comma contract documents, etc. So the government officials lack skills to study viability, comma technical feasibility, comma contract documents, etc. Next you write limited financing option. This is also a major problem. It is very difficult to get the funding, right? So limited financing option. Even with the lending institution also there are limited resources. But why? Because these are long-term projects, right? So long-term lending is actually a big problem. So you write there limited resources with term lending institutions. Limited resources with term lending institution. One more problem, underdeveloped bond market. Underdeveloped bond market. So you cannot raise fund by issuing bonds also. So limited resources with term lending institution, underdeveloped bond market, etc. Write one more line. These are primarily dependent on banks. These are primarily dependent on banks, bank finance, primarily dependent on bank finance, which are not well suited for providing long-term finances. So why bank finance are not well suited for providing long-term finance? So what I'm saying is these are primarily dependent on bank finance, which are not well suited for providing term finance because of the asset liability mismatch problem. I'll explain this. Just write that. Which is not suitable for providing term finance because of the asset liability mismatch problem. See here, first point that I have told you is limited resources with term lending institutions, right? When I'm talking about term lending institutions, I'm talking about insurance companies, I'm talking about pension funds, okay? Infrastructure finance companies, for example, IDFC, okay? And Government of India also established this IIFCL, India Infrastructure Finance Company Limited. So they are mainly getting funds from the banking finance, right? So bank finance are not suitable for term finance or long-term finance. The reason is asset liability mismatch. What do you mean by that? From where the bank get money from deposits, right? What is the maximum term of deposit? 1 to 5 years. Okay, so here you need long term. So your deposit is like mostly 1 to 5 years. So you cannot make long-term commitment by seeing the deposit, right? So there is an obvious limitation with the bank. There is a limitation for bank to give long-term. So this is actually a problem. That's what you mean by asset liability mismatch. Liability is what? Liability is, what is the liability of the bank? So the asset is actually this, the deposits are this. So this is asset, loan is asset, and liability is the deposit, okay? So there is a mismatch between asset and liability. You have 1 to 5 year deposit, maximum fixed deposit maybe 7 year, 8 year, but long term loans you're supposed to give. So on what condition? How can you expect whether this deposit will remain, and all these are the problems. This is what you mean by asset liability mismatch. So loans given by the banks are the assets. I've discussed this when we discussed about balance of payment situation of the banks, and the liability is actually the deposits. So liability is short term. So this assets, it's like long term. You don't know, right? Long term. So there is a big problem here. You want to return to these depositors, right? So that is actually the problem. And underdeveloped bond market is also a problem. Now write government measures. Next is government measures to solve these problems. Government measures. First one, PPPAC, Public Private Partnership Appraisal Committee, PPP Appraisal Committee, PPP AC. It was established in 2005, just right, it was established in 2005 for streamlining the process of appraisal and approval of PPP projects. For streamlining the process of appraisal and approval of PPP projects.
Sir, please repeat.
Yeah, 1 second. It was established in 2005 for streamlining the process of appraisal, means evaluation, etc., and approval of the PPP projects. So for appraisal and approval of the PPP projects, this committee, PPP Appraisal Committee, it is headed by Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs under Finance Ministry. It is headed by Secretary of Department of Economic Affairs under Finance Ministry. So that is the first one. Okay. Second one, PPP cells. PPP cells have been established in various ministries. PPP cells have been established in various ministries to coordinate project development related activities. Project development related activities. Okay, third one, online toolkits and manual is created. Online toolkits and manual are created with the assistance of World Bank, to disseminate information about PPP policy of the government. With the assistance of World Bank to disseminate information about the PPP policy of the government. Information about the PPP policy of the government. Okay. Fourth one, National PPP Capacity Building Program. National Public-Private Partnership Capacity Building Program. National PPP Capacity Building Program. It was initiated in 2010. With the assistance of Asian Development Bank. For providing training to government officials. I have told you the problem is with government officials cannot conduct the viability study or technical feasibility, etc. Right? So for that, government officials will be trained here. It was initiated in 2010 with the assistance of ADB, Asian Development Bank, for providing training to government officials. Okay, next one. 5. Norms for competitive bidding process have been established. Norms for competitive bidding process have been established. You can also talk about Swiss challenge here. Okay. So norms for competitive bidding process have been established. Sixth one, guidelines for renegotiation of projects were issued in 2016. Guidelines for renegotiation of projects were issued in 2016. Seven, see the main problem that I have told you is with respect to the fund, right? So here you can write new financing schemes and institutions. New financing schemes and institution. When you talk about this viability gap funding, okay, so you can write their example viability gap funding. I will discuss about this later in other session. So viability gap funding, okay, whatever that extra is there, that will be funded. We will discuss this in, I'll revisit to this viability gap funding. Now see, whatever you can go for your own suggestions also here, what to do, etc. in case of essay. Now there is a committee related to this. That committee is also important. Kelkar committee. Kelkar committee. Okay. So the name of the committee you can write Committee on Revisiting. Committee on Revisiting and Revitalizing the PPP model of infrastructure development. The PPP model of infrastructure development. So the chairman was Dr. Vijay Kelkar. Okay, so that's why Kelkar committee. And the report was submitted in November 2015. So committee on revisiting and revitalizing the PPP model of infrastructure development. We will go through the recommendations. Write the first recommendation. The risk of PPP project, which is related to the risk. Okay, now here the maximum risk is actually with the private entity, right? So that is the main problem, and to overcome that only we have discussed about hybrid annuity model. Okay, but here you write the risk of PPP project should be optimally allocated among all stakeholders. Should be optimally allocated among all stakeholder. Now what do you mean by stakeholder? Is it the same as that of shareholder? What do you mean by stakeholder? Here government will come, private entity which is operating will come, also the public will come. Okay, so the risk has to be shared. Even the public also may have to pay user charges more, okay, in a difficult situation. So stakeholder approach. The risk has to be shared optimally among the stakeholders. Second one, the project in which the revenue cannot respond to projects in which the revenue cannot respond to quality of service and tariffs. Quality of service and tariffs. In bracket you can write, for example, highways. Highways, comma, the risk of such projects should not be transferred to private entity. The risk of such projects should not be transferred to private entity. The projects in which the revenue cannot respond to the quality of service and tariff. The risk of such project should not be transferred to the private entity. That means if the user charges may not be able to recover the actual cost, then you should not leave the entire risk on the private entity who's participating. Okay. Next point. The government should grant project on the basis of service delivery and efficiency Government should grant project on the basis of service delivery and efficiency rather than on fiscal consideration. So government should grant project on the basis of service delivery and efficiency rather than on fiscal consideration. See, what do you mean by this? This is a very important point. When I am talking about service delivery, okay, that you know, efficiency means I am talking about the private entity who can finish the work in less time and with less amount. Okay, so this is what I mean by efficiency here. So you should be giving the project to this entity rather than going with the fiscal consideration. Fiscal consideration means some private entity will promise that this private entity may commit like 20 to 80%, 20% to government and 80% to private sector. So if some other entity is saying 40 to 60, but it will be not that efficient, extra spending is there, okay, user charges will be high. So don't go with this just by considering this fiscal consideration. Go with this. That is what the point all about. You can write there, that is the proportion of tariff offered to government by the private entity, the proportion of tariff offered to the government by the private entity, should not be the criteria for selection of bidder. Should not be the criteria for selection of bidder or sponsor. Bidder or sponsor. Okay, bidder means directly the company is bidding. Sponsor means sponsor company will be different. Like I have told you yesterday, Reliance as a sponsor company and a special purpose vehicle SPV will be set up for that particular project. Okay, so that's why two different terms are used. Next point, there should be built-in provision for renegotiation of projects. There should be built-in provision for renegotiation of projects in the contract document. And I've told you before, the government measures, right? Renegotiation guidelines were passed in 2016. So here there should be built, otherwise what is the problem? Once you negotiate and once you enter into the project, then the entire responsibility is with the private sector. But a lot of things can change with time, land acquisition, a lot of issues may happen in future, right? So there has to be a built-in provision for renegotiation of the project in the contract document. Next point, the Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988. The Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988 should be amended to distinguish between errors of judgment and acts of corruption. Errors of judgment and acts of corruption. Sometimes errors of judgment may directly come as act of corruption only. Okay, so not that important, but I've just told you this point, the recommendation. Next point, an infrastructure PPP adjudication tribunal. An infrastructure PPP adjudication tribunal, okay, IPAT, should be established. Infrastructure PPP. Why these tribunals? Earlier everything will go to High Court first and then go to Supreme Court, right? Then for everything there is a tribunal. For example, when we discuss about All India Services and Central Services, there is a Central Administrative Tribunal. Similarly, the state administrative tribunals are also there. So Central Administrative Tribunals are actually established instead of High Court. So they had the power of High Court, and directly from Central Administrative Tribunal you go to the Supreme Court. But now Central Administrative Tribunal, it will go to High Court of the concerned state and then go to the Supreme Court, like that. Okay, so tribunal, this is in case of central government jobs, but otherwise in general everywhere you will see now industrial tribunal and all this. Everywhere you can recommend also. It has to speed up functioning and everything like that. Even banking also we have discussed about the tribunal. Okay, so IPAT. Next point, a national level institution for capacity building. A national level institution for capacity building, that is training to government officials, should be established. Training to government officials should be established. National level institution for capacity building, that is training to government officials, should be established. Okay, so this was one of the problem, right? Government officials have no technical know-how, okay, no knowledge about viability study, etc. And we have also talked about this ADB, okay, so that contract, but here there was a proposal. Next one, the government should draft a national PPP policy. government should draft a national PPP policy and a PPP law if feasible. Okay, national PPP policy and a PPP law if possible. Next point, the government should set up a regulator. One of the problem that we have discussed is there is no independent regulator, right? So government should set up a regulator in the sectors which are taking up PPP projects. Regulator in the sectors which are taking up PPP projects. Now here the recommendation is, next recommendation is government should not promote a Swiss challenge model. Okay, because it promote unnecessary and unfair competition. That may not be good in the long term. Okay, right there, the government should discourage unsolicited bids. Unsolicited bids. Unsolicited bids, in bracket you can write Swiss challenge model. Unsolicited bids, in bracket Swiss challenge model, as it leads to information asymmetries and unfair competition. Okay, one more. New system of credit rating. New system of credit rating for PPPs is being developed by credit rating agencies. New system of credit rating for PPPs being developed by credit rating agencies. Okay, next we will talk about infrastructure. Okay, yeah, any doubts here? One more session is required for this PPP, this investment model. With that, we will finish this module. Very simple module, but very important from your mains point of view. You need to update the current affairs, the issues, current issues, and everything with respect to this. Okay, whenever you're writing the exam, you have to update it. See, I have added all of you in the app. In case if you're missing out any lectures, now everything is available in that. Okay, so if any one of you left out, you let me know. You download some of you are not yet downloaded. Okay, download it and sign up, and then let me know. I will add all of you, so that if you miss out any lectures or in future later, if we are conducting the classes through the app, you need any way to go with that. Some modules we will refer to that classes only, recorded classes only, and we will sit for the doubt clearance, like social sector and all. So no, social sector we completed, maybe growth development, like that. So all of you in this group is added in the right now. Who's attending the class? I think all of you are added, but some of you are not there. Okay, so can we stop here today?
Excuse me, sir.
Tell me, Anjali.
Sir, recently government invites private players in railway. So is that come under partial disinvestment?
Which one you are talking about?
Government invite the private sector in railway, 151 rails.
That is disinvestment. That is disinvestment, but that is not complete. That is not done.
Partial disinvestment.
Yeah, I don't know. I have read about disinvestment of this, but I am not sure about that. What is exactly you are talking about? I don't know. Government invited what? For doing what? I don't know about that.
Private players.
Private players for
151 rails.
Private players for what?
To operate 151 rails.
Operate 151?
Train.
That may be a leasing contract only. That will come and that is not disinvestment. That may be leasing contract only.
Yes, sir.
Tell me.
It's not for operating. They are told to manufacture 151 trains and deliver to government.
That will come under any of the one which we have discussed. No, build may not be even operation. That build and transfer. That's it.
Yes, a design build contract.
That's it only. There is no operation, nothing. I don't know about what you're saying actually. That's why.
It's not disinvestment.
No, it's not disinvestment.
Okay.
They are just constructing and transferring it to the government. So what is the purpose of disinvestment? If it has to be, the shares has to be given, then only it is disinvestment.
Okay.
So it is a kind of service. No, it's just it is portion. So that will come under that one which we have already discussed. Okay, so just go through that things. It will be very confusing, but you read 2, 3, 4 times, then things will be there. Even I am also not able to recollect what all things I have taught. Okay, this boost, BO, all these are confusing. So just go through it. Anyway, you need to remember everything. You need to reproduce exactly the same thing in mains. Prelims, if you get the option, it is very easy for you. This chapter will be the easiest in prelims, but will be the difficult in mains compared to any other subjects. Okay, so we'll stop here. See you.